Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another Nacho Tuesday. And today I have Charlene and Michelangelo here with Zyphe. And without further ado, we'd love if you guys can introduce your brand and what Zyphe does.
So nice to meet you all. I'm Michelangelo, one of the founder of Zyphe. I was building companies before. I built 3 companies as well too. I'm working in the identity industry since 2018. Zyphe is a decentralized KYC and KYB product company. And here with me there is Charlene, my co-founder.
Hey everyone, I'm co-founder as well. Prior to Zyphe, I had been working in fintech and other software platforms just prior at WorldPay, which is one of the world's largest merchant acquirers. Started my career in management consulting at McKinsey, and I have an MBA from Harvard Business School.
Very nice. Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't come with a presentation today. Everybody I meet from McKinsey always has a presentation ready to go.
Avoid that too.
Exactly. Yeah, these webinars tend to be more like conversational anyway, so that's good for both of us. So tell us more about why you guys decided to start Zyphe. How did all this start? How did you guys become business partners and come up with this idea together?
Yeah, I can also give a quick elevator pitch about Zyphe.
Yes.
So as Michelangelo mentioned, we're identity platform. So we're privacy first identity verification solution. And what we try to do is give users greater control for their data while giving companies peace of mind. So during digital onboarding today, if you're going through one of these processes, you're giving up a lot of sensitive information there. So your ID card, passports, biometrics, all this very sensitive information. And that's sitting on somebody's servers for 5 to 10 years, depending on the retention requirements in that particular jurisdiction. And companies are also liable for protecting all that information, which creates a lot of risks and also a lot of operational overhead and insurance and liabilities. It's a pain for users. Most people don't like going through that process. It's additional steps. Sometimes you fail. And then they have to redo this over and over again each time they sign up with a new application, which creates onboarding. We have a decentralized platform, which is built on Web3 principles, and that enables more seamless know your customer, know your business, anti-money laundering, et cetera, along with secure data retention. So basically, we keep personal data off company servers while keeping them fully compliant, which reduces a lot of risks. And we've also made it a frictionless platform where people can reuse their identities for one-click verification.
Very interesting, actually. Yeah, that's a big deal these days because people want a frictionless onboarding experience more than ever. But of course, we want to protect their data because how many times do we get a notification from some company we're subscribed to that, oops, your password got leaked again? That happens quite regularly now.
For sure.
Yeah, that happen a lot in nowadays. But you have seen the news over the last couple of weeks. A lot of data breaches with millions of personal information selling in the web. So it's has been a topic that was all the awareness around the personal information and privacy is getting more and more discussed with every single community that we know.
Yeah, definitely. There's every week I swear I log into like a website. I have like these kind of burner emails with like a kind of a burner password. So I don't care if they get access to those particular accounts, but I'll notice all the time, like, I'll try to log in with that email address and that password, and then it notifies me that there's been a data leak. So it seems to be a regular occurrence now.
Yeah.
But thankfully, my good accounts are all protected.
Yeah, there are some good companies that does that on the password level. We are trying to do the same on the storage level of personal information and build around the identity, the entire business that we were building from the ground up. For that reason, even when we started back in the days, we saw that pain point. So we started as a B2C company, and we had an application with 1.5 million user inside. And with that application, we were just allowing people to see where the information that they are giving away to the business were stored, and even how those information were shared around. So there is a company now that does the same, and you can check. There is a saymine.com. It's a news a good thing that if your community want to check out. We were doing quite the same thing. The only difference was you were able to track everything about your digital footprint, but we were using a decentralized storage that was Solid. Solid was a protocol built by Tim Berners-Lee, that is the creator of World Wide Web, and we were the first company in the world in production with that protocol.
Oh.
Yeah, was quite nice. And we were able to decentralize personal information for every user that we onboarded. At that point, then I was pitching the value proposition of privacy first on user information, and a big company into a big Web3 company, Protocol Labs with Filecoin, came to me and said, "Can we build a decentralized KYC with your technology and what you have in place?" I was like, "Why not?"
Yeah.
So we started that long period of R&D with them and another bunch of companies. Thank you, all of them. That allows us to build a new version of the decentralized storage, because the main difficulty is to be compliant with different regulation. So have granular compliance with each state. As Charlene mentioned, you have states that require you to keep the information for 5, 10, or 8 years, and you need to comply with different regulation in a super granular way.
Yep. Yes.
So we were able to build the entire structure from the start to the end, and now we have a plug and play solution that allows people to do KYC in a super private way. So we decided to focus on the decentralization in two aspects of the decentralization. One is the decentralized ownership. So every single user that goes through our platform, they own their information.
Wow.
So instead of us having 1 million, 2 million, 20 million users' information inside our servers, we just create a decentralized storage owned by the user. So each of our user has a decentralized storage owned by them. We cannot access the information. We can just validate the information. Once we validate the information, we just lose access to the entire payload, to the entire data. So we don't have access to your biometric. We don't have access to your passport. We cannot train models or resell data. That is our decentralized. And then we have the decentralization on the geolocation, the geographical decentralization. So imagine we are onboarding a person, we are doing KYC for a person in Europe. That person, the information, the data of that person are split into 100 pieces and shared across the network. But you know that from the GDPR perspective, you need to keep the information within Europe. So the servers that we are picking are just European ones. We can geolocate the information. For example, you have Switzerland, that the information needs to stay within the country. If we onboard a Swiss person, we just geolocate the information within the servers that we have in the region, in Switzerland in that case. So that are the two types of decentralization that we have in place at the moment.
And so you guys are finding a lot of traction in Europe specifically, and also in the US, of course, too. But where would you see like some of the biggest uptake is?
So on that one, we are seeing traction like everywhere. We have Europe and US as the strongest market. We have some clients in Asia, and then now we are seeing traction even in Africa. Nigeria is picking up quite nicely.
Very nice. So what inspired you guys to start the company? Obviously, you have a strong background in this area as well. Was there like a moment, like maybe your password got leaked online, or maybe you had a company where you had a security breach at some point?
Yeah, so I think Michelangelo just talked a little bit about the background of the company. We worked with a couple of customers up front. This was an emerging need that was identified. But I can tell you a little bit more about KYC and KYB and what that is, and a little bit of why we're focused on those areas.
Yep.
So KYC and KYB, so know your customer, know your business, right? These are regulatory requirements And so for a lot of the companies that we were working with, on the one hand, we had already been kind of helping users kind of protect their data a little bit more. So that's what Michelangelo was talking about earlier about user onboarding and being a B2C business initially. A lot of that was driven by this need to produce more privacy. As it turns out, in the compliance process, the place where you're losing your privacy a lot of times the most is onboarding. And so businesses have this requirement around know your customer, know your business. The background behind that is a lot of this is to prevent financial crimes. So you might have seen a lot of things in the news in the last couple of years about people using different platforms, sometimes in the Web3 space, to kind of do illicit activities. And that's something that states really don't want. But on the other hand, you have to balance that with this privacy concern of, well, to validate that somebody is who they are, they're also giving up their information. So know your customer, know your business. Those are compliance processes. They're required by law. Retention is from 5 to 10 years, or 5 to 10 years, depending on the environment. And then that allows institutions and financial fintechs to really assess the risk profile of those customers that they have on there to make sure they're being compliant. Know your business is a more extensive version of know your customer, which is now you're not just looking at the individual, but the business itself and all the different people who are within that business to make sure that there's no kind of shady corporate structure going on that's kind of hiding something that might not be fully compliant with the law. So heavily regulated industries have to deal with a lot of this compliance burden. And then you have, on the one hand, Web3 companies and kind of crypto exchanges who care a lot about privacy, and a customer base that cares a lot about privacy, and this process that requires just almost by default the loss of that privacy. So that's a little bit of what we've been trying to do, and that's how we ended up in the KYC, KYB space. And Michelangelo, did you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, so on the KYB side, that we are getting a lot of question around that. So on the KYB side, when you need to gather the documents, you need to collect documents from different sources. You can ask the business that you are onboarding. You can go and ask a document directly from the government's databases and etc. So in that scenario, we are just doing the first level of KYB, that is the due diligence for collecting all the documents, getting the UBO's director, and run an AML check on everything, ownership structure, and etc. So it's the level we were able to automatize the entire document collection. So instead of waiting 3-4 weeks to get the document back from the government, or trying to collect all the document from different data sources, with us, you can do it in literally seconds.
Yeah, so we're kind of navigating two things there, which is on the one hand, privacy preserving where it's necessary for individual personal data, both on the know your customer individual side and also kind of within the UBO, which is ultimate business owners within companies, and really keeping that information private. But on the other hand, automating and kind of making things as efficient as possible, because if you have too much friction, you're just not going to be able to use this platform very effectively, and then that kind of defeats the purpose.
Yeah, people really want things now. I guess, friction's like a big issue with any product, getting people into the platform without creating, even if it's necessary to grab this information, with NachoNacho, we've had, issues with that in the past that we've streamlined as well. But, customers typically, they want to protect their privacy, but also get into the platform and be able to start playing around with it. How do you balance those risks, I guess, for companies? What other onboarding trends do you see shaping up for 2025 and beyond?
So there are different risks on the area of onboarding. There is the risk of deepfakes, the risk on data breaches, and we are seeing and even the risk of regulation. We can take those three. So the risk on data breaches, we have seen a trend that the amount of data that companies are storing are doubled in 3 years. So from 2021 to 2024, the amount of PII, personal identifiable information, that has been stored has been doubled. That means there are way more data that can be leached and then used to train deepfakes. So to train a good deepfake, you just need a couple of photos, and you can generate a video that is passing most of the liveness detection. And if you have a bunch of photos plus the documents that are real documents, you can pass KYC. You have seen what happened a few months ago. That is public on Reddit. A guy on Reddit tried to pass KYC with a deepfake, generated image of the document plus a generated video of a user, and that guy was able to be onboarded with one of the most known players in the market. So yeah, that is one thing that we are taking care of. We are collaborating with companies that generate deepfakes to just trying to prevent that. And on the other side, we want to secure the information, because if no one has my document, they can try to generate a deepfake of my face, but they don't have the document to get onboarded.
Yep.
If my document is in a data breach, someone can just generate the deepfake of my liveness and then open a bank account with my name.
Wow. It's almost like everything's going to have to move to the blockchain for verification going forward, because, I mean, you guys are really kind of skating where the puck's going, right? So I think these AI deepfakes are getting really powerful. I mean, Google just launched like a new video platform as well that's extremely good. And, scammers have already been using like the voice dialers, where they'll copy your voice and try to call into a customer service line to get your information just by, impersonating your voice even. But now they're going to be doing video here pretty soon. So it's kind of crazy to see how fast everything's evolving.
Yeah, and it is crazy because it's also the cost has increased just so much, right? If you, we were looking at IBM's research, and the average cost of a data breach in 2024 was $5 million US dollars thereabout, and it's increased by 15% over the last 3 years, and that's just the last 3 years, and it's just kind of on an upward trend. Meanwhile, consumers are much more concerned about this as well. We are looking at sensitivity around privacy. 79% of Americans worry about companies and how they use their data. You mentioned that you have gotten, I have as well, a bunch of notifications that, oh, sorry, your data has just got breached. We'll pay for a year of Equifax monitoring.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks.
Yeah, it's perfect. And then there's a lot of also fines and regulations that are coming down because of that as well. There's, credit unions today was talking about in the first half of 2024, global regulators issued 80 fines, which totaled $263 million for violations of Know Your Customer and anti-money laundering compliance. So it's becoming more and more expensive. And at the same time, which we talked about earlier, the onboarding experience is more important than ever. So you want to know who your customers are, but all these platforms are competing with each other for users, and if you introduce too much friction, they're just people go to the path of least resistance, and we see a lot of drop off. So KYC actually introduces something as high as 70% of users can drop off because of that process alone. So that's something we also have to really be mindful of in terms of onboarding.
Yeah, it's a big deal, and I think for consumers going forward, they're going to almost demand this privacy and protection for their data. And for businesses, it's a must-have, because if you can't afford one of these lawsuits, right? And with how fast the world's evolving right now, I mean, companies are going to be coming at you if they know you have very important data on certain types of customers and businesses. So for a business, you could really get ahead of this by just moving to the blockchain, as opposed to trying to keep up with all the AI deepfakes. Like, the blockchain technology is really designed for something like this in almost a perfect way, as opposed to some people just launching like the next new crap coin, But I think you guys found like a really strong use case for blockchain that I don't think a lot of other companies really have when they go to market with the product that's on the blockchain. So I think what you guys have built is very powerful.
Yeah. And I'll just also say that we're not, in some cases we're using blockchain, but I think for the storage of personal data, we're not actually putting on a blockchain. Anyone who knows what that means is going to panic because they're going to think, oh, my personal information is on this public ledger. That's not what we're doing. We can, for instance, issue tokens that we can put on a blockchain that you've been verified, but your information is not sitting in a blockchain. It's in decentralized storage. And that's actually a little bit of what's unique about our approach is we actually balance this Web 2, Web 3 world, if you're familiar with those terms. But basically, we're privacy first. We are decentralized. We issue people with their own wallets. So they have more, the true sense of Web 3 is you remove the middleman for areas where you don't need them. So your identity is something that we believe that people should just own directly and be able to manage directly. So that's what we issue to them. And then we use decentralized storage where there isn't an opportunity for us or other people to kind of go in and mess around with your private data or kind of reveal it without your permission. And then so we remove those unnecessary intermediaries. We do data processing in a trusted execution environment. And then anything that's retained is actually in decentralized storage, which makes it much harder to breach. If you think about what Michelangelo talked a little bit earlier, we're basically taking this data, we're sharding it out. So you'd have to have your own keys to be able to kind of reconstruct a lot of that data. And there's no kind of central backdoor. Now that's the trick here is right now the regulatory environment requires you to actually be able to look at the source data. So you have to say, here's the passport that we originally had. Here's the biometric proof that we use to kind of verify it's the same person. All that stuff still needs to be auditable. And that's what we make available through this kind of intermediate way of approaching Web 3, Web 2, which is like this decentralized storage. But over time, I think we're gonna more so move in a direction where there's less and less of that required. And that's something that I think is one of the future trends we'll see.
Great. Yeah, thanks for diving into that about how your platform actually works and what makes it unique compared to everything else out there. I got to say we run a SaaS marketplace, and I don't think I've particularly seen exactly a company like you, which is rare. I mean, we do see a lot of like email marketing tools and all that. So you guys are definitely stand out in the marketplace. I guess where do you see digital identification verification evolving over the next 5 to 10 years? And what emerging technologies will redefine digital onboarding, you think?
So I can take this. As Charlene mentioned, we are bridging Web 2 and Web 3. So traditional businesses and more Web 3 businesses all over the world. So we tried to be to look in the future, and I think everyone will use a ZK, a zero knowledge type of verification in 10 years. We tried to implement that in the product before, but it's something that the regulation is not accepting at all. Mm-hmm. So everyone that is looking into KYC that wants to do a zero knowledge as today, that is not going to work because you cannot go to market. It's impossible to penetrate the market, and even is not accepted. As Charlene mentioned, you need to have the picture, the document, you need to have the selfie, you need to have the video verification, and so on. But I think in the next future, we will see the world moving from a traditional KYC, that every single information is on the provider side, or on the company side, to a decentralized KYC, to a ZK KYC. That is what I see the world evolving, because after that you will have a fully self-sovereign identity where the government will issue the credential directly, and you just need to prove it, and then you will have this system that is interconnected. So you will use just a zero knowledge type of verification for every single step.
Very interesting. So you see go ahead, Charlene.
I also jump in for zero knowledge, because I don't know if our audience all knows what zero knowledge means, but basically that means you're, for instance, giving your identity card and your likeness. And that's all kind of being done in a way where nobody else gets to see it. But there's kind of an algorithm that kind of matches everything. And then says, yes, this was done. We generate a proof that really can't be replicated, and that shows that this was done. It's all compliant. So in an ideal scenario, that is the most privacy preserving option you have, which is nobody even gets to see it in any way, shape, or form.
It's very interesting. And then you also mentioned something about the government getting more involved as well as part of the verification process. Can you dive into what you think is going to happen there?
Yeah, I can make several examples, but I will stick. I'm Italian. Let's go for
high level, I guess, for the audience.
Yeah. So in Italy we have a different type of verification that is government backed. So there is the digital ID that has already a private key inside the digital ID. So you can send messages with a government issue ID. When a private key is just a key that you hold and no one has access to that, and that is a system. A private and public key is a system for the blockchain. So for the one we don't have time to dive in, but if you want some more information, you can reach out to us about that.
Reach out to experts.
Yeah. So in that case, we are seeing that the government are putting a digital credential online. I have, for example, my driver license is a digital driver license. So even in the moment that I need to do KYC, now I can do it without taking a photo of my driver license, but I can just call the government API, get my driver license in a digital format that is signed by the government, so you know that the document is original and it's real, and then you cross-check with the liveness my face with the picture in the document. So you know that the person has the key to access his document, you know that the document is real, and you know that if you match the face with the document, the person is the same. So that is one part of what we are seeing in the market, and there are more and more examples in US. The driver license now they are doing ZK on the driver license for some website. So just to prove that a person is a minor or if he meets the threshold on the age.
Yep.
So at least 18 years old. So that is something that they are already doing. The government, some governments are doing with driver licenses. So that is the trend that we are seeing.
So what's next for you guys? I guess over the next 5 years, obviously you're going to assume that the government's going to start to get more involved. There's going to be a lot more regulation around this as well. Do you see any changes in maybe some of the feature set that you offer?
Yeah, so I think our role for the next 2 or 3 years will be to keep the information in a safe place, and then evolving with the market. So make ourselves like the digital identity platform, not a KYC platform. So where you can store all your personal information in a really safe way and privacy preserving way. You can think about all your healthcare information, banking information, credit history. And one cool thing about us, we're building for interoperability. So that everything that we're building with the interoperability in mind. Charlene, if you want to add.
Yeah, I think one of the things, just more broadly speaking, is right now, people don't think about privacy when they're giving out their information. They only think about it when they get a notification, like we do, about a data breach afterwards, like, oh crap, my information's out there. And it's the same for companies. They don't really think about a lot of this they kind of accept it as a necessary evil, but then at some point the data gets leaked, they end up in the news and with fines, and it's not great. So we want people to really start thinking about that problem. And we're starting to work right now with the most privacy conscious, forward thinking companies out there. And these guys are starting to use our application. And we see that as setting the bar for privacy protections today. And then as companies become more sensitive and they start seeing the lead from these more privacy preserving companies, consumers will start to realize over time just how much of their data is kind of sitting in somebody's server somewhere, hoping that it doesn't get breached. And so we want privacy to become more of a forethought rather than an afterthought. And that's something we hope to create in the market.
And I think the consumers are going to start demanding it after, after you hear about these stories, over and over again. More people are going to start to demand protection for their data and privacy. And you see the big trend in Europe, which is kind of pouring over into the US now. I actually had a buddy lose a bunch of Bitcoin because somebody was able to hack his account. So he lost a couple $100,000 on that. Painful mistake, but it's a tough lesson. But people hear about these stories, myself included. And so since then, I've been taking my privacy a lot more seriously as well. And I know everybody's going to hear those stories from friends or family, and eventually they're going to start to demand this from companies as well. So,
for sure.
Great. So I guess where can people learn more about your company and pick up Zyphe today?
Zyphe.com. Spelled KYPHE.com.
YPHE, everybody, just in case they didn't know how to spell that. We're also very proud partners of you guys as well. We do have Zyphe in the NachoNacho marketplace, the best place to buy SaaS, because we do have the best products and some of the most unique products on the market. So really excited to have you guys on board with us, and look forward to what we can do over the next few years.
For sure.
Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks for coming on today, guys.
Thank you.
Ciao.